When people look back at this season, whether it's your teammates, facilitators, or fans, what do you hope they say about this run that you had?
Odyssey Sims with the nice floater.
I'm still really good at basketball. I think some people think I fell off, but I haven't. I think my numbers show for themselves, and what I've done, AU speaks volumes. So I just let my game talk. Everything else will show for itself.
I sat down with Odyssey Sims before the final series of the 2023 season. She's the gold team captain yet again and #1 on the leaderboard heading into week 5. Tune in to the final episode of the Captain's Journal on Thursday. Welcome to the final Athletes Unlimited preview show of the season. I'm Savannah Collins, joined by my co-host Christina Williams, and we have a packed show for you today. With just 6 games left in the season, we're going to discuss awards, potential medalists, and of course, who might be that 2023 champion. But first, we have to talk about the pivotal game on Saturday night, Team Smith versus Team Sims. Christina, how do you think the outcome of that game, especially with gold coming back and winning in the final seconds, impacted the leaderboard?
Absolutely. Right now, it's coming down to the wire as we approach week 5. We talked last week how important that head-to-head matchup between Smith and Sims was going to be, particularly because of the game win points and the quarter win points. In the final game of the week, it was 50-50 in terms of the quarter wins, but NaLyssa Smith's team lost 150 points. We talk about the impact on the leaderboard. It's a lot. Last week, there was only 265 points separating that 1 and 2 spot. And now heading into week 5, there's 474 points difference in that leaderboard spot.
Yeah, that's where I feel like things really changed last week. So going into game 24, Saturday night, NaLyssa Smith was only behind Odyssey Sims by about 302 points. And you can know where you can make that up is 2 quarter wins and a game win. So that's where that gap could have closed, but she has one more chance to try and change the narrative when she plays Odyssey, and that's game 30. The final matchup of the season will be one more showdown between orange and gold. So if NaLyssa is going into week 5, that last game, in a similar situation as she was on Saturday night, she does have the chance to be able to turn things around and become champion. But for Odyssey, all she has to do is pick up her wins along the way and play like she has been with her stat points, and she can lock in this championship for herself.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to note that Smith had not beat Sims at all this season. So going into week 5, that roster selection is going to be super important in terms of strategy to finally get a win over Sims. So let's take a look at it. The final draft of the season went down on Sunday, and there were quite a few surprises, particularly from Isabel Harrison and NaLyssa Smith, who decided to shake things up this season.
Yeah, as Izzy said at the draft, it was spicy this week, and the Twitter reactions were priceless. So what happened is Isabel Harrison picked Kelsey Mitchell with the #1 overall pick at the draft, but that was who NaLyssa Smith was planning on picking. That made her take a totally different direction and go for Jordin Canada, who has been Odyssey Sims' right-hand woman all season. I cannot believe that happened.
Yeah, I absolutely love the new picks, and I'm excited to see how these new rosters work together. But let's dive a little bit deeper into Team Harrison's selections for this week. I love the fact that she went out and got her big early in Teresa Plaisance, and then she addressed the shooting. She added Kelsey Mitchell, who set the season record for 3-point shots made. And there was also another still on this roster. Izzy took Jamiris Davis from Odyssey Sims, who they played together all season long. So this is going to be interesting to see how this team fare out.
Definitely. I thought Izzy was super smart in understanding where she was in that draft order. So getting Plaisance before Nas sticks out to me because that 5 out last week was dangerous. And then taking guesses at her starting 5, I'm thinking Harrison, Mitchell, Clarendon, Plaisance, Westbrook. Maybe if I'm putting those 5 together, and I love who's going to rotate in from Harrison this week. So Burton, Davis, Burkholder. I think she has a really strong bench and second rotation to fill out the rest of these games. Next, we're going to take a look. We move back into blue. Naz Hillman and her squad. She is back again with facilitator Pokey Chapman. I think that is dangerous. It's a major threat to strategy. They work together and communicate so well. And you know what I've heard a lot about Naz Hillman is that athletes want to be on her team. I think that speaks to who she is as a captain. Her first 4 picks were identical to her first 4 picks in week 3. And if you dig into it, she's the only captain to have any semblance of consistency in her roster. This one is really just a fusion of week 4 and week 3 for her. With the addition of Cole and Custer, love the pick and Cole. What do you think, Christina?
Yeah, I really like this roster and how it's panning out. I also noticed she did select Alicia Gray and Natasha Cloud, who they've been sort of a trio throughout the season. So I'm excited to see that. And then one thing that Naz Hillman said during the draft is if you know what you're doing, then every pick is a great pick. And I like that mentality that she's carrying through in week 5 as well. And then, of course, we love Lexi Brown. She addressed her shooting and getting someone who's efficient from outside the arc. And then she grabbed Jasmine Walker as well. So super excited to see how Team Hillman pans out going into week 5. But then let's move over to Team Smith. The first thing that comes to mind is that this is a guard-heavy team, but there are great players who are defensive-minded first. I'm a little worried about the consistency of shooting on this team, but I love the fact that she went out and she grabbed Crystal Bradford, Lexi Hall, and Jordan Canada, who's top in steals and set the tone with her defensive ability and her ability to finish in transition. And I also like the pickup of Courtney Williams for this team, as her explosiveness on both ends of the floor is contagious.
So the minute the draft ended, I had to go ask Melissa if that was planned to pick Jordan Canada, and it wasn't. It was simply in reaction to Izzy picking Kelsey and then her wanting to throw Odyssey off. So the strategy changed this week, but I think you really pointed out how even though she picked Jordan Canada, who's someone she hadn't really played with before, the rest of her picks, I think she did a good job of rounding out that team. What's interesting is there's only 2 forwards. Melissa is one of them, so I would expect her stat points in the paint to be heavy this week. Love that CB is back together again with her. I think they do such a good job of, to be honest, bullying the guards around them. I love that combo. So now we'll talk a little bit about Team Sims and how she reacted to losing out on who had consistently been her number 1 pick in Jordan Canada. To be honest, it took her a little bit of time to get over it. Her reaction to it and really in her picks from there on, I think was kind of, okay, what's my next step? So she went out and got Kirsten Bell. I thought that was a great pick to try and establish some of that familiarity that she had. But that's where it ended. So here's the lowdown on this group. I think this is going to shock you. This season, Odyssey Sims has not played with Sydney Colson, Christy Belloc, Rebecca Harris, India Jones, or Destiny Walker. Not a single week. And she hasn't played with Danny McRae since season 1. That's crazy to me, Christina. This is a whole new team for her.
I think that maybe the other captain's strategy coming into week 5 was to throw Odyssey Sims off because she is so high in the rankings and, they want to win as well. So they went by first attacking her roster that she's used to. And I kind of like that strategy. It's very smart. But in what she lost, she gained someone that was familiar and acquired Kirsten Bell. Bell, she was a captain last week, so I think having someone that she is familiar with will kind of be a positive or a bright side in terms of her roster selection this week.
Those are your 4 rosters who will finish out the 2023 season together. Next, let's talk about some of the awards. So the ones that we're looking at this season are Teammate of the Year, a all-defensive team selection, and from that group, Defensive Player of the Year. Christina, thinking about those 5 slots that are going to make up the all-defensive team, are there some people who really stick out to you in their game this season?
Immediately off the top of my head, I think about a wing who has a strong defensive presence, and that's Alicia Gray. Her playing style is aggressive and energetic, and her size allows her to play all over the floor and defend positions 1 through 5. She gives any team a tremendous boost defensively. She's top 3 in steals in the league with 24 and averages about 5 rebounds a game. She's one of the best 2-way guards, in my opinion. I particularly love the way that she's able to convert points from turnovers. I'm curious, Sav, how do you determine who's your Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think defense can sometimes be tough on paper because you really only have steals, defensive rebounds, and blocks to work with. So I sat down with Pokey Chapman during the games just to be able to pick her brain about when you're watching a game, what are you looking for in the defenders? And here's what I have determined are my keys to a great defender and defensive player of the year. So starting off, guards and forwards that can switch to defend the opposite position. This is a positionless league, so to be a great defender, you have to be able to get in on anybody. They're not hackers. They stay out of foul trouble and alter shots. It's not always blocking shots, but really getting deflections. Maybe someone who gets a ton of tips and has great timing under the hoop. Who comes to mind for me there is Teresa Plaisance. They're vocal even when they're not involved. Immediately, I'm thinking Natasha Cloud is a great choice there, someone who's talking and keeping the rest of her defense informed and involved. And here's a big one, ability to defend off-ball screens and on-ball screens. Alicia Gray, perfect example. Jordan Canada. And who in particular sticks out to me with that is Veronica Burton. So if I'm putting my all-defensive team together, those are some people that I have in mind, as well as Lexi Hull. She's really gotten after it this season. And then VB, I feel like that's oftentimes when she's brought into games is when they need a stop or they need somebody to get in and change the momentum. So that's who's really stuck out to me this season.
So heading into week 5, less than 1,000 points separate the top 4 players on the leaderboard. Sab, I'm super curious, in the previous season that you covered, what matters most coming down to the wire?
Yeah, I think consistency at the top is really going to be what we see play out. So I would really be shocked if Sims, Smith, and Hillman didn't medal. Harrison's been bouncing in and out of that number 4 throughout the season, but they're captains. They're really in charge of their own destiny. That gives them a lot of leeway in how much they play, how many stat points they earn. So I would really expect those to be the medalists. But what's interesting to me about this season that really separates it from any other, not just basketball, softball, volleyball too, is nobody has dominated the MVP point category that's in the number 1, number 2 slot. So right now, Kelsey Mitchell, by a large margin, has the most MVP points. But everybody else, 2, 3, 4, 5, even down to 6, they're all tied or separated by just 30 MVP points. And that's usually my indicator of who's going to be champion. So this season, that's changed. And I'm looking at stat points and win points to try and figure out who do I think is going to be a medalist and who do I think is going to be champion, which has made this season really different from others when it comes to how people are winning and staying at the top.
Yeah, I agree. Those top 3 spots are pretty much like a deadlock, but then it gets tricky when you look into 4 through 10. Particularly, I think it's going to be hard for, players in particular to pass up players that they're on the same team with. I think about Isabel Harrison and Kelsey Mitchell, as you mentioned, they sit in that 4 and 5 spot. And then I think about Crystal Bradford, Lexi Hall, and Jordan Canada, who sits at 7, 8, and 9 on the leaderboard. And, one of the trends that we've seen is that in that top 10, players only move up or down 1 to 2 points. So heading into week 5 is going to be very interesting to see, how that 4 through 10 really stands out.
That's such a great point. And I think that's something that even players don't always particularly realize, because when they look at the leaderboard, they may be seeing all of their competition. But what throws it off is when they're on the same team, they move up as well as down together because they're getting the same win point. So if you're going to see people make changes and leaps to pass, it's going to be people on different teams usually, which I think is going to factor into who is number 3, who is number 4, because it has felt like all season that the champions race is Odyssey and Alyssa, and then everybody else is really working to be a medalist.
I really like those points, but with that being said, who do you have as a dark horse to place as a medalist?
I don't know if I have one. I think it's going to be someone that we've seen be a captain at some point this season. And I think Naz Hillman is locked in. Either the 3, 4, it could be either or. She really has this down in being a captain. She consistently goes 2 and 1, and her stat point performances don't change. She is good night after night with her rebounds and putting up double-digit points. Same with Isabel Harrison. There's rarely a time where she's shut down this season. For Kelsey Mitchell to pass her, she's going to have an unbelievable MVP point winning game. So if there's somebody that's going to slip in there, it's going to be someone we have seen be a captain before. But I don't have the answer to that. The only thing that's going to tell that are these games that are starting soon.
And the action tips off at 6 p.m. on WNBA League Pass.
this wraps up the last preview show of the season. We have made it to week 5.
I know. I can't believe we're already here and that it's already the final show. It's been such a pleasure to host the show with you, Sav.
I have loved being your co-host and especially loved having this platform to dig into what makes AU special, to understand the point system, the changing teams every week in this leaderboard. It has been a pleasure. For the final time, we're going to send it over to Cheryl and Cindy for coverage.